Once there was a young man who was in high school, and he found the poetry of Robert Frost. And he fell in love with Robert Frost's poems. And he read every poem that he could find, and he even memorized some. A Road Not Taken, Fire or Ice, and other poems that he loved so much. And when he went to college, he became an English major. And in the second year of college, he was allowed to take an elective in the English department. And he looked in the catalog and he saw the poems of Robert Frost. He thought, perfect. I'll spend a whole quarter just learning about the poems of Robert Frost. So he went to the class, and the professor taught everything there was to know about Robert Frost and his poems. They went through all the poems. They looked at the meter of the poems, the rhyme schemes, the alliteration, the metaphors, the background of Robert Frost, his New England simplicity, the psychology of Robert Frost. It was exhaustive. There was nothing they did not cover. And at the end of the quarter, the professor handed out an evaluation. And he said, I'd like to know how you felt about this class. And so the young man took his evaluation and he wrote on it, "You have ruined Robert Frost for me. You've taken away all the wonder and all the mystery. I'll never read Robert Frost again." Well, the professor had analyzed it to death. You know, a poem is supposed to be alive and breathe and take flight off the pages of the book. Then what happened to the young man with Robert Frost's poetry can happen to us with Scripture as well. I remember hearing a sermon. I can't remember where or when I heard it, but it was a sermon by a preacher who was determined to prove the literal fact of the resurrection, that Jesus' body was raised literally and exited the tomb and was present there outside the tomb. And so he treated it like a court case, like he was a lawyer in court. And he assembled all the facts, and he told you exactly what had happened and what the evidence was. And he marshaled it all into one big argument that came to a conclusion that Jesus was literally raised from the dead. And at the end of it, I thought, well, yeah, you have proved that Jesus was literally raised from the dead, but you've taken all the mystery out of it, all the magic out of it, taking the wonder away from it. There's more to Scripture than just the facts. Just think about the story of the empty tomb and how much wonder there is in it. First of all, it's a story about two women, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. I wonder who the other Mary was, by the way. And it's a story about two women who have been chosen to be the witnesses of the resurrection. And this is in a male society, a patriarchal society. So why was it that two women were the first witnesses to the resurrection? I wonder about that.
Because they're the ones that brought the herbs and they're the caregivers.
Okay. Then there was a great earth.
Make it into a fishing story either.
Right. And then there was a great earthquake. Now, an earthquake is a mysterious thing. You're on solid ground one moment, the next moment everything is moving and shaking. You don't know what's happening. You don't know where it came from. You don't know how long it's going to last. It's a mysterious thing. And then an angel appears with an appearance like lightning. What's an appearance like lightning? I don't know. I wonder. And with the the earthquake and the rolling away of the stone from the tomb, the guards fall down like dead men. Well, that seems strange. I've never seen that happen before. I wonder. And the angel says, you're looking for Jesus of Nazareth who was crucified. He's not here. He's been raised. And I'm sure the women are thinking, this can't be. It's impossible. How can this happen? It seems so out of the ordinary and impossible to happen. So it's a matter of wonder. I wonder how this could be. And then they turn and go back to the disciples to tell them, and they come face to face with the risen Jesus himself. Now, wonder of all wonders, how can this possibly be? So it seems to me that this is not a story about facts and evidence, but it's a story of wonder, a story of a miracle. And if we lose the wonder of the story, then we lose the whole story. It's not just a literal story of resurrection, but it's not just literally true, but it's psychologically true. We know this story in our souls and in our lives, in our bones. I think that in modern society, we have lost our capacity for wonder. Science has taken everything and made it into, atoms bouncing around off each other, and science has produced these amazing miracles, but it's lost our capacity for wonder and mystery. Technology gives us these amazing toys to play with, and as soon as we get them, they just become ordinary, and we don't even pay any attention to how miraculous they are, and after a while, they begin to enslave us. We're too literal-minded. We need wonder. We need wonder to connect us to God and to connect us to each other and to connect us to this planet, which is really a spiritual being as well as a physical being. There was a great scientist who was in despair. He was depressed. He had spent his whole career doing great things for science, making great discoveries and advancing the cause of science, and had many papers in his name. But as he grew older, he became depressed because of the thought of climate change and nuclear disaster and what technology was doing to human beings. And one day he was sitting on the porch with his grandson. And his grandson said, "Grandpa, why are you sad?" And he said, "Well," he says, "I just don't know what the world is coming to." And his grandson said, "Well, in Sunday school they taught us a song. He's got the whole world in his hands." He started to sing it. "He's got the whole world in his hands." And his grandpa listened to the song and he said, "That's a pretty good song. Do you believe that?" And the grandson said, "Yeah, I believe that, Grandpa." And so the old scientist decided that he was going to try to find wonder again through his grandson. He was going to let his grandson, become his spiritual guide. So every evening they would sit on the porch and they would look for something of wonder. His grandson showed him the wonder of a dog. He showed him the wonder of a sunset. He showed him the wonder of a hug. And over time, the old man lost his depression and he began to have some hope again. We need a sense of wonder. We need to hear the story of the resurrection of Jesus to keep our hope alive and to use that capacity that God has given us for imagination and for wonder and for mystery. You remember that young man I told you about who loved Robert Frost? Well, after a long time, he did come back to the poems of Robert Frost. And he began to see in them, he began to rediscover in them the sense of wonder that he had had when he was young. Like in the poem Dust of Snow, goes like this. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Such a simple poem, but it evokes a sense of wonder. You know, the bird lighting on a branch and shaking off snow that comes down like dust. When Robert Frost saw that bird and that snow, he felt a sense of wonder. And whenever we read that poem, we feel a sense of wonder. Just like when we hear the story of the empty tomb and the resurrection of Jesus, we also feel that sense of wonder. The wonder of God's love for us in Jesus Christ, the wonder of the resurrection, and the wonder of everlasting life.